The Ramayana, translated into English prose from the original Sanskrit of Valmiki, edited and published by Manmatha Nath Dutt, 1891. Ramayana, Bala Kanda, Section 29. Hearing those words of Rama of measureless prowess, who had asked the question, the highly energetic Viswamitra answered, saying, "Hear, O mighty armed Rama, Vishnu of mighty asceticism, worshipped of all the deities, for years upon years, and hundreds of yugas, dwelt for carrying on his austerities and yoga. This, O Rama, was formerly the hermitage of the high-souled woman. And this is famed as Siddhasrama, in consequence of that one of potent asceticism having attained fruition there. And it came to pass that at this time Virochana's son, King Vali, having vanquished the celestials with Indra and the Maruts, established that dominion of his, famous in the three worlds. And that mighty chief of the Asuras celebrated a sacrifice. And as Vali was performing that sacrifice, the deities with Agni at their head, coming unto Vishnu himself at this asylum, addressed him, saying, Virochana's son, Vali, O Vishnu, is celebrating a sacrifice. Do thou, before the ceremony is finished, accomplish thy own end. He duly conferreth upon such as repair unto him from various quarters all those things that they ask for. And do thou, thyself, O Vishnu, aided by thy power of illusion, assuming a dwarf form, accomplish the welfare of the celestials. In the meantime, O Rama, the wonderful Kashyapa resembling fire in splendor, and flaming in energy, having in company with, and with the assistance of the divine Aditi, O Rama, accomplished his vow, lasting for 100 years, began to him the destroyer of Madhu ready to confer boons. By means of warm austerities, do I behold thee composed of penances, a mass of mortifications, and endowed with a form and a soul of austerities. And in thy person, O Lord, do I behold this entire universe. And in thee without beginning, and incapable of being pointed out, do I take refuge. Thereupon exceedingly pleased, Hari spake unto Kashyapa, with his sins purged of saying, Do thou mention the boon. Good betide thee. Methinks thou deservest a boon. Hearing these words of his, Marichi's son, Kashyapa, said, Aditi, the gods and I myself, crave of thee this, and, O bestower of boons, it behoveth thee well pleased to confer on us this boon, O thou of excellent woes. Do thou, O sinless one, become born as my son in Aditi, O adorable deity. Do thou become the younger brother of Sakra, O destroyer of Asuras. It behoveth thee to help the celestials afflicted with grief. And this place through thy grace will attain the name of Siddhasrama. The work, O Lord of the celestials, hath been accomplished. Do thou now, O thou of the 6 attributes, ascend from hence. And accordingly Vishnu of mighty energy took his birth in Aditi. And assuming the form of a dwarf, he presented himself before Virochana's son. And then asking for as much earth as could be covered by 3 footsteps, that one ever engaged in the welfare of all creatures, with the object of compassing the good of all, stood occupying the worlds. And having by his power restrained Vali, that one of exceeding energy, again conferred the 3 worlds upon the mighty Indra, and made them subject to his control. Formerly he used to dwell in this asylum capable of removing fatigue. And through reverence for the dwarf, I reside here. And this hermitage is infested by Rakshasas disturbing rites. And, O most puissant of men, here thou shouldst slay those ones of wicked ways. Today, O Rama, will I repair unto this supremely excellent Siddhasrama. And this asylum, child, is as much thine as mine. Saying this, taking Rama and Lakshmana, the mighty ascetic, experiencing exceeding delight, entered that asylum, and appeared graceful, like the moon emerged from mist in conjunction with the Punarvasu stars. And beholding Vishwamitra, the ascetics inhabiting Siddhasrama, suddenly rising in joy, worshipped that intelligent one, and extended unto the princes the rites of hospitality. And then having reposed for while, those unreproved princes, the descendants of Raghu, with clasped hands, addressed that foremost of ascetics, be thou even today initiated unto the ceremony. Good betide thee, O best of ascetics. Let this Siddhasrama verily attain fruition, and let thy words be verified. Thus addressed, that mighty saint of exceeding energy, with his mind subdued, and senses under restraint, caused himself to be initiated into the ceremony. And like unto the Kumaras, Rama and Lakshmana, having passed the night pleasantly, rose in the morning, and having finished their morning worship, and with purity and self-restraint recited the prime mantras, paid their obeisance unto the sacrificial fire and the sacrificer, Viswamitra, who was seated. Section 30. Then those princes, repressors of foes, cognizant of place, and time, and words, thus spake unto Kusika's son agreeably to time and place, saying, O adorable one, do thou tell us as to the time when we should oppose those rangers of the night one, let not that hour pass away. Upon the two Kakutsthas saying this, and finding them prompt for the encounter, those ascetics well pleased, fell to extolling the sons of the king. For 6 nights from today, ye should protect us. This ascetic hath been initiated into the sacrifice, and must therefore observe taciturnity. Hearing these words of theirs, those illustrious princes, renouncing sleep, began to guard the hermitage 6 days and nights, and those heroic and mighty archers with their armors on protected that best of ascetics and subduer of enemies. And when time had thus gone by and the 6th day had arrived, Rama said unto Sumitra's son, being well equipped, be thou vigilant. When Rama, manifesting emotion, and being eager for encounter, had said this, the priests and spiritual guides lit up the altar. And along with Viswamitra and the family priests, they lit up the altar furnished with kusa, and kasa, and ladles, and faggots, and flowers. And as reciting mantras, they were about to duly engage in that sacrifice, there arose a mighty and dreadful uproar in the sky. And as in the rains, masses of clouds appear enveloping the firmament, the Rakshasas, displaying illusions in that wise, began to rush onward. And Maricha and Suvao together with their followers coming in dreadful forms, began to shower down blood upon the altar. And on seeing the altar deluged with gore, Rama suddenly rushed forward, and beheld them in the sky. And suddenly seeing them rushing in amain, the lotus-eyed Rama fixing his gaze at Lakshmana, said, Behold, O Lakshmana, by means of a manva weapon, I shall, without doubt, drive away the wicked, flesh-eating Rakshasas, even as the wind driveth away clouds before it. Surely I cannot bring myself to slay such as these. Saying this, that descendant of Raghu, Rama, in vehemence fixing on his bow an exceedingly mighty and gloriously dazzling manva weapon, discharged it in great wrath at Maricha's chest. And wounded by that foremost of manva weapons, Maricha carried off a sheer 100 yojanas, dropped in the midst of the ocean. And finding Maricha senseless, and whirling, and afflicted by the might of the weapon, and overcome, Rama addressed Lakshmana, saying, "Behold, O Lakshmana, this manva weapon first used by Manu, depriving him of his senses, hath carried him off, and yet hath not taken his life. But these shameless, wicked, and blood-drinking Rakshasas, addicted to wrongdoing, these disturbers of sacrifices, will I slaughter." Having said this, anon showing unto Lakshmana his lightness of hand, Raghu's descendant took out a mighty Agneya weapon, and discharged it at the breast of Suvao. Thereat being pierced with that shaft, he fell down upon the ground. Then taking a Valvaya weapon, the illustrious and exceedingly generous Raghava, bringing delight unto those ascetics, slew the rest. And having destroyed all those Rakshasas disturbing sacrifices, Raghu's descendant was honored by the saints, even as Indra in days of yore, after having vanquished the Asuras. And when the sacrifice had been completed, the mighty ascetic Viswamitra, beholding all sides cleared of Rakshasas, spake unto Kakutstha saying, "O mighty armed one, I have obtained my desire, and thou hast executed thy preceptor's mandate. And, O illustrious hero, thou hast truly made this a Siddha Rama." Having thus extolled Rama, he took Rama and Lakshmana, to perform his evening devotions. Section 31. Those heroes, Rama and Lakshmana, their interest secured, with glad hearts passed that night there. And when the night had passed away and the morning come, they together appeared before the saint, Viswamitra, and the rest. And having saluted that foremost of ascetics resembling flaming fire, they of honeyed speech spake unto him words exceedingly lofty. "These servants of thine, O best of ascetics, have come before thee. Do thou command, O chief of anchorists, what command of thine are we to execute?" Thus addressed by them, the Maharshis with Viswamitra at their head spake unto Rama, saying, "A highly meritorious sacrifice, O foremost of men, is to be celebrated by Mithila's lord, Janaka. Thither shall we repair. And thou, O great among men, must accompany us, and there behold a wonderful jewel of a bow. And formerly this bow of immeasurable energy, and dreadful, and exceedingly effulgent at the sacrifice, had been conferred in court by the celestials, on King Devrata. And neither gods nor Gandhabas, neither Asuras nor Rakshasas nor men, can fix the string upon it." And desirous of being acquainted with the prowess of this bow, many kings and princes came, but they in spite of their mighty strength, failed in stringing it. There, O Kakutstha, thou wilt behold that bow belonging to the high-souled king of Mithila, as well as his exceedingly wonderful sacrifice. That rare bow, O foremost of men, furnished with an excellent device for gripping it, had been solicited by Mithila's lord as the fruit of his sacrifice, and the celestials conferred it upon him. And now, O descendant of Raghu, in the residence of king, the bow is worshipped like a deity with a guru, dupa, and various other incenses. This having been said, that foremost of ascetics, in company with Kakutstha and the saints, departed. And on the eve of setting out, he addressed the sylvan deities, saying, "Luck, I will, with my desire obtained, go from forth this Siddhasrama unto the Himamvat mountain on the north of the Jahnavi." Having said this, that tiger-lake ascetic, Kusika's son, along with other anchorists having asceticism for their wealth, set out in a northerly direction. And as that best of ascetics proceeded, he was followed by Brahmanas upholding the Veda, carrying the sacrificial necessaries on 100 cars. And birds and beasts dwelling in Siddhasrama followed the high-souled Viswamitra having asceticism for wealth. and then followed by the body of devotees he dismissed the birds. And having proceeded a long way, when the sun was sloping down, the ascetics rested on the banks of the Sona. And when the maker of day had set, having bade and offered oblations unto the fire, those ascetics of immeasurable energy, placing Viswamitra in their front, sat them down. And Rama also together with Sumitra's son, having paid homage unto those ascetics, sat him down before the intelligent Viswamitra. Then Rama of exceeding energy, influenced by curiosity, asked that foremost of ascetics, Viswamitra, having asceticism for his wealth, saying, O worshipful one, what country is this, graced with luxuriant woods? I am desirous of hearing this. Good betide thee, it behoveth thee to tell me this truly. Thus addressed by Rama, that one of high austerities, an excellent verse began in the midst of the saints to describe the opulence of that. Section 32. Once upon a time there was a mighty son of Brahma, of high austerities, named Kusa. And he was cognizant of duty, and ever engaged in observing vows and honoring good men. And that high-souled one begat on Vadabi, sprung from a respectable line, and endowed with all noble qualities, 4 sons like unto himself, and possessed of extraordinary prowess, Kusamvan, and Kusnabha, and Asatarajas, and Vasu, resplendent and breathing exhaustless spirits. And with the desire of enhancing Kshatriya merit, Kusa said unto his truthful and virtuous sons, Ye sons, do ye engage in the task of governing, and thereby acquire immense merit. Hearing Kusa's words, those 4 foremost of men and best of sons addressed themselves to founding seats for their government. And the highly energetic Kusamban founded the city of Kaushambi, and the righteous Kusnabha, the metropolis of Mahodya, and the magnanimous Asatarajas, Dharmaranya, and King Vasu, Girivraja, best of capitals. This city with these 5 mighty mountains shining around, otherwise called Vasumati, belongs to the high-souled Vasu. And the river known by the name of Sungadi flows through the Magadhs. And in the midst of the 5 foremost of hills, it looks like a garland. And this Magdi, or Rama, belongs unto the high-souled Vasu, taking, O Rama, an easterly course, and flowing through fertile fields furnished with corn. And, O descendant of Raghu, the virtuous souled Rajarshi Kusnabha begat 100 peerless daughters on Bhiritachi. And it came to pass that they endowed with youth, beautiful, and like unto the lightning in the rainy season, decked in excellent ornaments, coming to their garden, were merrily singing and dancing and playing on musical instruments, or Raghava. And as they perfect in every limb, and unparalleled on earth in beauty, and endowed with all qualities, and furnished with youth and grace, were in the garden, like unto stars embosomed among clouds, that life of all, the air, beheld them and said, I seek for ye, do ye become my wives? Do ye renounce this human guise, and attain long lives? Youth verily is unstable, specially with the human beings. Do ye attaining unfading youth, become immortal? Hearing this speech of the air of ever fresh energy, the damsels ridiculing it, said, Thou rangest the hearts of all creatures, O foremost of celestials, and we also know thy influence. Wherefore, then, dost thou dishonor us? O foremost of celestials, we are the daughters of Kusnabha, O divine one. And God as thou art, we can dislodge thee from thy place, but we refrain from doing so, lest thereby we lose our ascetic merit. May, O foolish one, that time never come, when disregarding our truthful sire, we following our inclination, shall resort to self-choice. Our Father verily is our Lord and prime God. Of him even shall we become the wives unto whom our Father giveth us away. At these words of theirs, that Lord and adorable one, the heir, exceedingly enraged, then entered into their bodies, and broke all their limbs. Their bodies being thus broken by air, those damsels, exceedingly agitated and overwhelmed with shame, with tears in their eyes entered the residence of the king. And finding his supremely beautiful and favorite daughters with their limbs broken, and woe begone, the king bewildered, spake, Ye daughters, what is this? Who is it that thus disregards virtue? By whom have ye all come by this crooked form? And why demonstrating your grief, do ye not answer me? Having said this, the king heaved a deep sigh and became eager to hear all about it. Section 33. Hearing those words of the intelligent Kusnabha, his 100 daughters touching his feet with their heads, said, O king, that life of all, the heir, was desirous of overcoming us, having recourse to an improper way, nor did he regard morality. We have a father, good betide thee, and have no will of our own. Do thou ask our father about it, if he consent conferring us on thee. But that wicked wight did not listen to our words, and as we were saying this, were we roughly handled by him. Hearing those words of theirs, the highly pious and puissant king addressed his 100 beautiful daughters, saying, Ye have displayed a signal example of that forgiveness which is fit to be followed by the forbearing, and that ye have unanimously regarded the honor of my house, also conduces to your praise. Alike to men and women, forbearance is an ornament. And difficult it is for one to exercise that forbearance, specially in respect of the celestials. And may every descendant of mine possess forbearance like unto yours. Forbearance is charity, forbearance is truth, forbearance, O daughters, is sacrifice, forbearance is fame, forbearance is virtue, yea, the universe is established in forbearance. Then dismissing his daughters, the king endowed with the prowess of celestials, and versed in counsel, began to consult with his counselors about the bestowal of his daughters in respect of time and place and person and equality of lineage. And it came to pass that at this time an ascetic named Chuli, highly effulgent, with his vital fluid under control, and of pure practices, was performing Brahmya austerities. And as the saint was engaged in austerities, good betide thee, Urmila's daughter named Somada, a Gandhabi, ministered unto him. And in all humility that virtuous one for a definite period was engaged in ministering unto him. And thereat, her spiritual guide was gratified with her. And, O descendant of Raghu, once he said unto her, I am gratified, good betide thee. What good shall I render thee? Thereupon, concluding that the ascetic was gratified, the Gandhabi, cognizant of words, exceedingly delighted, sweetly addressed that one versed in speech, Thou art furnished with the Brahmya fire, art like Brahma himself, and of mighty austerities. I desire of thee a righteous son endowed with the Brahmya ascetic virtues. I am without a husband, good betide thee, and I am no one's wife. Upon me who am thy servant, thou shouldst confer such a son by help of Brahmya means. Thereupon, well pleased with her, the Brahmarshi Chulina conferred upon her an excellent Brahmya mind-begotten son, named Brahmadatta. And that king, Brahmadatta, founded the flourishing city of Kampilya, even as the sovereign of the celestials founded the celestial regions. And, O Kakutstha, the righteous king Kusnabha finally decided on conferring his 100 daughters upon Brahmadatta. And inviting Brahmadatta, that highly energetic lord of earth, with a glad heart conferred his 100 daughters upon him. And, O descendant of Raghu, King Brahmadatta, resembling the Lord himself of the celestials, by turns received their hands in marriage. And as soon as he touched them, the 100 daughters were cured of their crookedness, and became free from anguish, and were endowed with preeminent beauty. And upon beholding them delivered from the tyranny of the air, the monarch Kusnabha became exceedingly delighted, and rejoiced again and again. And he dismissed the newly married lord of earth, King Brahmadatta, in company with his consorts and the priests. And the Gandhabis Somada rejoiced exceedingly at the completion of the nuptials of her son, and embracing her daughters-in-law again and again, and extolling her son, she expressed the fullness of her joy. Section 34. And, O Raghava, when Brahmadatta was married, that sonless one, Kusnabha, with the intention of obtaining male offspring, took in hand a son conferring sacrifice. And when the sacrifice had commenced, that son of Brahma, the exceedingly noble Kusa, spake unto King Kusnabha, saying, O son, there will be born unto thee a virtuous son like unto thyself, thou wilt obtain even Gadi, and through him enduring fame in this world. Having said this unto King Kusnabha, Kusa, or Rama, entering the welkin, went to the eternal regions of Brahma. Then after some time, an eminently virtuous son, named Gadi, was born unto the intelligent Kusnabha. O Kakutstha, even that highly pious Gadi is my sire. And, O descendant of Raghu, I, called Kaushika, am sprung from Kusa's line. And, O Raghava, I had a sister of noble was born before me, and her name was Satyavati, and she was bestowed upon Richika. And following her lord, she ascended heaven in her own proper person. And my highly generous sister, Kaushiki, hath finally assumed the form of a mighty river, and in order to compass the welfare of all creatures, my sister is now a noble and charming river of sacred waters, issuing from the Himamvat mountains. And thenceforth, out of affection for my sister, Kaushiki, I ever dwell happily in the vicinity of the Himamvat, or Raghava. And that virtuous Kaushiki, Satyavati, as well established in religion as truth, and chaste, and eminently pious, is now the foremost of streams. And, O Rama, it is only for the purpose of completing my sacrifice that leaving her behind, I have come to Siddhasrama. And now by virtue of thy energy, have I attained fruition. Now, O Rama, I have narrated unto thee the circumstances connected with the history of my line and myself, as also of this place, O mighty armed one, which thou hadst asked me to relate. But, O Kakutstha, while I was speaking, half the night hath been spent. Do thou now sleep, good betide thee, so that thou mayst not feel any difficulty while on the journey. The trees stand motionless, and the beasts and birds are silent, and, O descendant of Raghu, all sides have become enveloped in nocturnal gloom. The midnight is gradually passing away, and the firmament thick-studded with stars resembling eyes, is illumined up with their light. And that dispeller of darkness, the mild beaming moon, is rising, gladdening the hearts of all creatures with his splendor. And night-ranging beings, terrible carnivorous yakshas and bakshasas, walk hither and thither. Having said this, the mighty ascetic of exceeding energy paused. And those ascetics honoring him, said, Excellent! Excellent! This line belonging to the Kusikas is ever exalted and devoted to virtue, and those foremost of men sprung in the Kusa race are high-souled and like unto Brahmarshis, and specially thou, O illustrious Viswamitra, art so. And that best of streams, Koishiki, hath added lustre unto thy line, and the auspicious son of Kusika having been extolled by those delighted ascetics, the foremost of their order, slept, like unto the sun, when setting. And Rama too along with Sumitra's son having in admiration praised that best of ascetics, enjoyed the luxury of slumber. Section 35. Having in company with the ascetics passed the remainder of the night on the banks of the Sona, Viswamitra, when the day broke, spake, O Rama, the night hath passed away, and the morn hath come. The hour for performing the prior devotions hath arrived. Arise, arise. Good betide thee. Do thou prepare for going. Hearing these words of his, Rama, having finished his morning devotions and rites, and ready for departure said, This is the Sona, of excellent waters, fathomless, and studded with islets. O Brahmana, by which way shall we cross? Thus addressed by Rama, Viswamitra replied, Even this path hath been fixed upon by me, that, namely, which the Maharshis go. And having proceeded far, when the day had been half spent they beheld that foremost of streams, the Jahnavi, worshipped by ascetics. And having beheld that river furnished with sacred waters, and frequented by swans and cranes, the ascetics who accompanied Raghava were exceedingly delighted. And they took up their quarters on the banks of the river. And then having bathed and duly offered oblations of water unto the gods and the manes of their ancestors, and performed Agnihotra sacrifices, and partaken of clarified butter like unto nectar, those high-souled and auspicious ones, with glad hearts, sat down, surrounding Viswamitra. And the descendants of Raghu also sat down, occupying prominent places as befitted their rank. Then Rama with a heart surcharged with cheerfulness spake unto Viswamitra, saying, O adorable one, I desire to hear how the Ganga flowing in three directions and embracing the three worlds, falls into the Lord of streams and rivers. Influenced by Rama's speech, the mighty ascetic Viswamitra entered upon the history of the Ganga's origin and progress. O Rama, that great mine of ore, Himamvat is the foremost of mountains. Unto him were born two daughters, unparalleled on earth in loveliness. And, O Rama, their mother of dainty waist, the amiable daughter of Meru, named Meena, was the beloved wife of Himamvat, she of whom was born Ganga the elder daughter of Himamvat, and, O Raghava, a second daughter was also born unto him, named Uma. And it came to pass that once upon a time, the deities, with the view of accomplishing some work appertaining to them as divine beings, in a body besought that foremost of mountains for that river flowing in three directions, Ganga. Thereupon, desirous of the welfare of the three worlds, Himamvat in obedience to duty, conferred upon them his daughter flowing everywhere at will, and sanctifying all creatures. Thereat in the interests of the three worlds, accepting her, those having the welfare of the three worlds at heart, went away with Ganga, considering themselves as having attained their desire. The other daughter of the mountain, or descendant of Raghu, adopting a stern vow, began to carry on austerities, having asceticism for her wealth. And that best of mountains bestowed upon Rudra of unequaled form his daughter Uma, furnished with fiery asceticism, and worshipped of the worlds. And these, O Raghava, are the daughters of that king of mountains, worshipped of all, viz. Ganga, the foremost of streams, and the divine Uma. Now, O best of those endowed with motion, have I related unto thee how that sin destroying one flowing with her waters in three diverse directions, first, O child, went to the firmament and then ascended the celestial regions. Section 36. When the ascetic had spoken thus, both the heroes, Rama and Lakshmana, saluting that first of anchorest, said, O Brahmana, thou hast delivered this noble narration fraught with morality. Now it behoves thee to speak about the elder daughter of the mountain king. Thou art extensively conversant with everything relative to men or gods. Why is it that that purifier of the worlds laveth three directions? And why is that foremost of streams, Ganga, famous as wending in three ways? And, O thou cognizant of morality, what are her performances in the three worlds? Thereat Viswamitra, having asceticism for his wealth, began to relate unto Kakutstha that history in detail in the midst of the ascetics. In days of yore, O Rama, the blue-throated one of mighty asceticism, having entered into matrimony, commenced upon knowing the goddess. And as that intelligent blue-throated god, Mahadev, was thus engaged in sport, a divine 100 years passed away, and yet, O Rama, chastiser of foes, no son was born of her. Thereat all the gods with the grandsire at their head became exceedingly anxious. Who will be able to bear the offspring of this union? And thereupon the celestials repairing unto Mahadev, thus addressed him, saluting low, O God of gods, O mighty deity, ever engaged in the welfare of all, it behoveth thee to be propitious at the humble salutations of the celestials. The worlds, O foremost of celestials, are incapable of bearing thy energy. Therefore, for the welfare of the three worlds, do thou, being furnished with Brahma asceticism, in company with the goddess practice austerities, and reign in thy energy by thy native indomitableness. Do thou preserve these worlds, for it becometh thee not to destroy all. Hearing the words of the deities, the great God of the worlds said unto them, So be it. And addressing them again he said, Ye gods, by my own energy I will, assisted by Uma, bear my virile vigor, therefore let the creation find rest. But tell me, ye foremost of celestials, who will sustain my potent virility rushing out from its receptacle? Being thus addressed, the gods answered him, having the bull for his mark, The earth will today bear thy vital flow. Thus assured, the mighty Lord of the celestials let go his vital fluid, and thereat the earth containing mountains and forests was overspread with the energy. Then the gods spake unto the fire, saying, Do thou in company with the wind enter into this fierce and mighty energy. And when the wind had entered into it, it was developed into a white hill, and a forest of glossy reeds, resembling fire or the sun. And here sprang from fire Kartikeya of mighty energy. And thereupon the celestials and the saints, with gratified hearts, began to pay enthusiastic adorations unto Uma and Shiva. Then the mountain's daughter, O Rama, addressed the celestials, cursing them with eyes reddened in wrath, while in association with Mahadev for obtaining sons, I was broken in upon by ye. For this, ye shall not be able yourselves to beget offspring on your wives. And from this day forth, your wives shall remain without issue. Having thus spoken unto the celestials, she cursed the earth also, saying, O earth, thou shalt have various forms, and many shall lord it over thee. Nor, stained because of my ire, shalt thou experience the pleasure that is felt on obtaining a son, O thou of wicked understanding, O thou that dost not wish me a son. Witnessing the gods thus distressed, the Lord of the celestials set out in the direction presided over by Varuna. And having repaired to the north side of that mountain, Maheswara along with the goddess became engaged in austerities on the peak Himamvat Prabhava. I have now related unto thee, O Rama, the spread of the mountain's daughter, Ganga. Do thou now together with Lakshmana listen to the narration of Bhagirathi's potency. Section 37. And on that celestial being engaged in austerities, the deities with Indra and Agni at their head, desirous of gaining over the generalissimo, appeared before the grandsire. And, O Rama, the gods with Agni at their head, bowing unto him, addressed that possessor of the 6 attributes, the grandsire, saying, O God, that adorable one who had formerly consigned unto us the generalissimo, resorting to high asceticism, is practicing austerities with Uma. Do thou now, O thou conversant with resources, so order as is advisable in the interests of the worlds. Verily thou art our prime way. Hearing the words of the deities, the grandsire of all creatures, consoling them with soft words, spoke unto them, saying, even as the mountain's daughter hath said, sons will not be born unto ye of your own wives. Her word is infallible of a certainty, there is no doubt about it. This is the celestial Ganga, she on whom Hutasna will beget a son, the foe-subduing generalissimo of the celestials. And the elder daughter of the mountain will consider that son as brought forth by Uma, and Uma also will, without doubt, look upon him with regard. Hearing these words of his, O descendant of Raghu, the gods bowing unto the grandsire, paid him homage. Then, O Rama, repairing unto the Kailas mountain teeming with metals, the deities commissioned Agni with the view of having a son, born unto him. Do thou, O God, accomplish this work, of the deities. O thou of mighty energy, do thou discharge thy energy into that daughter of the mountain, Ganga. Thereupon giving his promise unto the gods, Pavaka approached Ganga, saying, do thou, O goddess, bear an embryo, for even this is the desire of the deities. Hearing this speech, she assumed a divine appearance. And beholding her mightiness, Agni was shrunk up on all sides. And then Pavaka from all sides discharged his energy into her, and thereat all her streams became surcharged with it, O descendant of Raghu. And unto him staying at the head of all the deities, Ganga spoke, saying, O God, I am incapable of sustaining this new-sprung energy of thine, I am burning with that fire, and my consciousness fails me. Thereupon that partaker of the oblations offered unto the gods, said unto Ganga, do thou bring forth thy embryo on the side of this Himamvat. Hearing Agni's words, Ganga of mighty energy cast her exceedingly effulgent embryo on her streams, O sinless one. And as it came out of her, it wore the splendor of molten gold, and in consequence of its fiery virtue, objects near and objects far were converted into gold and silver of unsurpassed sheen, while those that were more distant were turned into copper and iron. And her excreta were turned into lead. In this wise, various metals began to increase on earth. And as soon as the embryo was brought forth, the woods adjoining the mountain, being overspread with that energy, were turned into gold. And from that day, O descendant of Raghu, gold of effulgence like unto that of fire, became known as Jatrupa, O foremost of men. And when the son was born, the deities with Indra and the Maruts enjoined upon the Kirtika stars to suckle him. Surely he shall be son unto us all, concluding thus, they as soon as he was born, by turns began to dispense milk unto him. Then the celestial called him Kartikeya, saying, without doubt, this son shall become famed over the 3 worlds. And hearing those words of theirs, the Kirtikas bade the offspring that had issued from her womb, flaming like fire, and with auspicious marks. And, O Kakutstha, since Kartikeya had issued from Ganga's womb, the celestials called that effulgent and mighty armed one, Skanda. And then the teats of the Kritikas were filled with milk, and thereupon assuming 6 mouths, he began to suck milk from the teats of those 6. And having drunk the milk, that lord, although then possessed of a tender frame, by virtue of his inborn prowess in one day vanquished the Danva forces. And him possessed of mighty effulgence, the celestials assembled with Agni as their leader sprinkled with water, by way of installing him as their generalissimo. He who, O Kakutstha, on earth revered Kartikeya, is blessed, and attaineth righteousness, and being long-lived and obtaining sons and grandsons, repaireth to the regions of Skanda. Section 38. Having said those words unto Rama, composed of melodious letters, Kaushika again spoke unto Kakutstha, saying, Formerly there was a king, lord of Ayodhya named Sagra. And it came to pass that righteous one, though eagerly wishing for children, was without issue. And Vidarbha's daughter, or Rama, named Keshini, was the elder wife of Sagra. And she was virtuous and truthful. And the second wife of Sagra was called Sumti, who was the daughter of Arishtanemi and the sister of Suparna. And with those wives of his, that mighty king, coming to the Himamvat, began to practice austerities on the mountain Bhrigu. And when a full 100 years had been numbered, the ascetic that had been adored by means of these austerities, Bhrigu, best of those endowed with truth, conferred a boon upon Sagra, saying, O sinless one, thou shalt obtain glorious offspring, and, O foremost of men, thou shalt attain unparalleled renown among men. And, O child, one of thy consorts shall bring forth a son who will perpetuate thy race, and the other give birth to 60,000 sons. As that best of men was saying this, those daughters of kings, exceedingly delighted, propitiating him, addressed him with clasped hands, Who of us, O Brahmana, shall produce a single son, and who many? This, O Brahmana, we wish to hear. May thy word prove true. Hearing this, the highly pious Bhrigu said these pregnant words, Do ye unfold your minds. Who wishes for what boon, between a single perpetuator of the line, and innumerable sons, possessed of mighty strength, and furnished with fame, and endowed with high spirits? Hearing the ascetic's words, O descendant of Raghu, Keshini in the presence of the monarch chose, O Rama, a single son to perpetuate the line, and Suparna's sister, Sumti, 60,000 sons, high-spirited and furnished with fame. And then, O son of Raghu, having gone round the saint and bowed down the head, the king went to his own capital, accompanied by his consorts. And after a length of time, the elder, Keshini, bore a son unto Sagra, known by the name of Asmaja. And Sumti, O foremost of men, brought forth a gourd. And when it burst open, out came from it 60,000 sons. And the nurses fostered them by keeping them in jars filled with clarified butter. And after a great length of time, they attained to youth. And after a long lapse of time, Sagra's 60,000 sons attained to youth and beauty. And O foremost of men, the eldest son of Sagra, taking those children, would, O descendant of Raghu, often cast them into the Sarayu, and in mirth behold them sinking in the waters. Being thus evil disposed, and injuring honest folks, and engaged in doing wrong unto the citizens, he was banished by his father from the city. And Asmaja had a son possessed of prowess, named Ansuman. And he was beloved of all men and fair spoken towards every one. And, O foremost of men, It came to pass that after a long time had gone by, that Lord of Earth Sarga made up his mind, saying, I will sacrifice. And having determined upon it, that one versed in the Vedas set about it, in company with his priests. Section 39. When Viswamitra had ended, hearing his words, Rama exceedingly pleased, spoke unto that ascetic resembling flaming fire, saying, I am anxious to hear in detail, good betide thee, how, O Brahmana, my ancestor arranged for the sacrifice. Hearing those words of his, Viswamitra, smiling, eagerly spoke unto Kakutstha, saying, Do thou, O Rama, hearken unto the story of the high-souled Sarga's sacrifice. Sankara's father-in-law is the far-famed Himamvat. And approaching each other, the Himamvat and the Vindhya behold each other. And on the region lying between them took place, O foremost of men, that sacrifice of Sargas. And that country, O best of men, is excellent as a sacrificial ground. And, O Kakutstha, equipped with a powerful bow, that mighty car warrior, living under Sarga's sway, Anshumat, O child, followed the horse, for the purpose of protecting it. And it came to pass that with the intention of disturbing the sacrifice of that monarch, on a certain day Vasva, assuming the form of a Rakshasi, stole away the sacrificial horse. And, O Kakutstha, on the horse of that high-souled one being stolen, the priests said unto the king engaged in the ceremony, On this auspicious day, hath the sacrificial horse been stolen by violence. Do thou, O Kakutstha, slay him that steals the horse, and bring it back. Otherwise the sacrifice will be defective, bringing us misfortune. Therefore, do thou, O king, act so, that the sacrifice may not be marred with defects. Hearing the words of the priests, the king addressed his 60,000 sons in the midst of his court, saying, Being as this great sacrifice is presided over by eminently pious Brahmanas, sanctified by mantras, I do not, ye foremost of men, ye sons, see how Rakshasas may find entrance into it. Therefore, repair ye, and seek for the horse, ye sons. Good betide you. Do ye search the entire earth engarlanded with oceans, and do ye search Yoyana after Yoyana, ye sons? And do ye delve the earth till ye light upon the horse, by my command following the track of that stealer of the horse. I have been initiated into this sacrifice with my grandsons and priests. And thereat the mighty princes, enjoined by their father, breathing high spirits, began to range the earth, O Rama. Then they each fell to delving the bowels of the earth for the space of a yoyana in length and breadth, with their hands resembling thunderbolts in feel, and with darts like unto thunderbolts, and with gigantic plowshares. And being thus riven, the earth, O descendant of Raghu, began to send forth loud cries. O Raghava, O thou hard to repress, there arose an uproar from serpents, and asuras, and rakshasas, and other creatures, that were being slaughtered. And, O descendant of Raghu, they excavated the earth, O Rama, for 60,000 yoyanas, yea, as if they had intended to reach the lowest depths underground. Thus, O foremost of kings, those sons of the monarch dug all around Jambudvip, filled with mountains. Thereat, the gods together with the Gandhabas, and Asuras, and Pannagas, in trepidation appeared before the grandsire. And propitiating that high-souled one, they with melancholy countenances and in exceeding agitation, spoke these words unto the grandsire, O adorable one, the entire earth is being excavated by the sons of Sarga, and many are the high-souled ones as well as the aquatic animals that are being slain in consequence. This one is the disturber of our sacrifice, and by him hath the sacrificial horse been stolen. Saying this, Sarga's sons are committing havoc upon all creatures. Section 40. Hearing the speech of the celestials, that possessor of the 6 attributes, the grandsire, spoke unto them exceedingly frightened and deprived of their senses on beholding the prowess of Sarga's sons like unto the destroyer himself. This entire earth belongeth unto the intelligent Vasudeva, she being his consort. And that adorable one is indeed her lord. And assuming the form of Kapila, he unceasingly sustaineth the earth. And the sons of King Sarga will be consumed by the fire of his wrath. The preordained excavation of the earth, as well as the destruction of Sarga's sons, had been foreseen by the far-sighted. Hearing the words of the grandsire, those repressors of their foes, the 33 celestials, being exceedingly rejoiced, went back to their respective quarters. And as the sons of Sarga were riving the earth, there arose a mighty noise, like unto the bursting of thunder. Then, having riven the entire earth and ranged it all around, the sons of Sarga together returned to their father, and spake unto him, saying, By us hath the earth been extensively surveyed, and have powerful deities and danvas, rakshasas, pishachas, urgas and pannagas been slain, and yet do we find neither the horse nor the stealer thereof. What are we to do now? Good betide thee, do thou consider it well. Hearing those words of his sons, that foremost of kings, getting into a wrath, said, O descendant of Raghu, do ye yet again, good betide ye, delve the earth, and having got at the stealer or the horse, cease. Receiving this mandate of their sire, the 60,000 sons of the high-souled Sarga rushed towards the depths of the earth. And as they were engaged in excavating, they beheld the elephant of the quarter resembling a hill, named Virupaksh, holding the earth. And, O son of Raghu, that mighty elephant, Virupaksh, held on his head the entire earth with its mountains and forests. And, O Kakutstha, when on sacred days the mighty elephant, from fatigue, shaketh his head, then takes place the earthquake. Thereupon, O Rama, going round that mighty elephant, and honoring him duly, they went on piercing the under earth. And having pierced the east, they pierced the south, and in the southern quarter also they beheld a mighty elephant, the high-souled Mahapadma, resembling a huge hill, holding the earth on his head. And thereat they marveled greatly. And having gone round him, the 60,000 sons of the high-souled Sarga began to penetrate into the western region. And in the western quarter also those highly powerful ones beheld the elephant of that quarter named Soamanasa, resembling a mighty mountain. And having gone round him, and asked him as to his welfare, they delving on, arrived at the northern region. And on the north likewise, O foremost of the Raghus, they beheld Bhadra, white as snow, holding this earth on his goodly person. And having felt as well as gone round him, those 60,000 sons of Sarga went on penetrating the depths of the earth. Then repairing to the famous northeastern region, Sarga's sons becoming enraged, began to dig the earth. And there those high-souled, exceedingly powerful and vehement ones beheld the eternal Vasudeva in the guise of Kapila. And there also, experiencing exceeding delight, O descendant of Raghu, they found his horse, browsing hard by. And knowing him to be the destroyer of the sacrifice, they bearing spades, and ploughs, and innumerable trees and crags, with eyes reddened with ire, furiously rushed against him, exclaiming, "Stay, stay! And thou it is that hast stolen our sacrificial horse. O thou of wicked understanding, know that thou hast fallen into the hands of the sons of Sagra." Hearing this speech of theirs, Kapila, O descendant of Raghu, overwhelmed with rage uttered a tremendous roar. And then, O Kakutstha, the sons of Sagra were reduced to ashes by the high-souled and incomparable Kapila. If you enjoyed this audiobook, please like and subscribe to be notified of when new audiobooks are uploaded. Thank you for listening and learning. Shanti.